We have many, many slogans going around, and I'm going to ask you to help interpret us some of these slogans. The first one is Free, Free Palestine. To you, what does that mean and how should we respond?
Well, as someone educated on this matter, let me surprise you and tell you that Free Palestine was a Zionist slogan before 1947. I know
before 1947.
Before 1947, the Zionist movement, by the way, before 1947, before the rebirth of Israel, the word Palestinian was mostly Jewish.
Yes.
And this is why Golda Meir said, I am a Palestinian, because at that time, the word Palestinian meant the British Mandate, all the British Mandate area of Palestine. But when Israel was reborn, that things changed, and the identity of the Palestinians became
the Arab Palestinians.
The Arab Palestinians came after 1964 with the PLO and Yasser Arafat. And
did it start with them, or did that come from the Russians starting?
It came from so the Russians are to blame, honestly. But I want to say one thing. Yeah, not related to any other conflict, I'm just saying, to this one in specific. But it was, the slogan, Free Palestine, was to keep it a Jewish land. Can you imagine that, how it turned now into something totally different? Now, what Free Palestine means, by the way, when I went to the Netherlands and spoke with Douglas Murray, I confronted many protesters outside the podium. And they kept shouting at me, Free, Free Palestine. You know what I said to them? I said, yes, Free Palestine. Let's all free Palestine from Hamas. This is something very important. So, Free Palestine, what the radical movement of the Hamas supporters mean by that is annihilating Israel. This is what they mean. So, you have to understand history. It started with a Zionist slogan, shifted to a radical slogan to annihilate the Jewish state. It is not peaceful at all. Free Palestine is not a peaceful slogan at all. It's not a call for coexistence. It's not a call for living side by side. And I always say this, I believe in the right of the Palestinians to live in dignity side by side with the Israelis. I don't believe in the right of Hamas to exist or the right of the Islamic Jihad or the radicals to exist. But the Palestinian people as people, they are not all Hamas or they are not all the Islamic Jihad. So we have to distinguish between the Palestinian people and the radicals like Hamas. And we have to say that these kind of slogans are dangerous in the real context that many Americans do not know. Many Americans do not know what is the true meaning of Free Palestine, or the charter of Hamas, the watered down one and the original one, or other slogans as well. Because they don't tell you the truth in English. I'm sorry to say this. But in Arabic, their Arabic social media or their Arabic channels, they really say the truth out loud, that Free Palestine is or means one thing, the total destruction and annihilation of Israel.
You just used two words, watered down, or three words, watered down version. We had that in the Newton public schools where they didn't want to offend the children, the kids, the students, with the real Hamas charter, which speaks of killing Jews. So they simply took it out. So our students at Newton North High School, Newton South High School, were getting taught that Hamas was a freedom movement for an alternative political view. That was the watered down thing. And so we ourselves were helping in indoctrinating our students by not giving the truth. I have some of those textbooks later on my desk and back there if any of you want to see them. Next, what about Intifada? As I understand it, that was a word like a dog shaking off fleas. But then Globalize it by Hatem Mazian in California. What about, explain that.
But let me first explain that you mentioned a very important point when you talked about the Free Palestine movement. when you said that there was a point that you said about freedom fighters. Anyone who thinks that in the US, unfortunately, and so many people do, that Hamas are freedom fighters, ask them one question. What kind of freedom fighting in kidnapping toddlers? What kind of freedom fighting in going into the homes of unarmed people and killing them and lynching them and taking them as hostages? What kind of freedom fighting is this? This is absolutely not freedom fighting. And if you ever think that Hamas, a radical Islamist movement, believes in nation states, good luck. But listen to those who know from the Middle East, they don't believe in nation states. It's not about the land, it's about killing Jews to be rewarded. That is not being said enough in this country. And many people don't really know what Hamas really is after. It was never after a land. They were given, by the way, you know when Israel left Gaza in 2005? I know many Israelis who left Gaza in 2005. They left the greenhouses, the innovations, lots of things that Hamas could have built a new Dubai in Gaza.
Including the markets for the fruit and vegetables in Europe.
But
that was the business plan.
They turned it into a battle zone to prepare for this day. And Gaza is no more anymore. By the way, I've been to the borders of Gaza with the Red Crescent of the UAE. There's no more Gaza. And it's sad that Hamas decided to be suicidal and doesn't take care of its population or people to lead them into a suicidal operation like October 7th. So I just had to say this. For the Intifada, Intifada in Arabic is a shake. So if I, for example, like, I'm just trying to make it easy for you to understand, to our audience. Like, if you have a jump scare, you see when you do the jump scare, this is Intifada. So Intifada had a different meaning in Arabic, which is an uprising, but it's not a normal uprising. It's a violent uprising. History is so important. You need to look at the history of the word Intifada when it became into a reality, when it became reality, and look at the events. It started in 2001 or 2002. Suicide bombings, bus bombings, many bombings that took place in Israel. So globalize Intifada means go after the Israelis wherever they are and kill them. That is the meaning of, by the way, Israelis/Jews. 2 days ago in Greece, or maybe yesterday in Greece, a group of Israelis were attacked. That is globalized Intifada. A Jewish French was killed a couple of weeks ago. That is globalized Intifada. So globalized Intifada is a very violent slogan that many people in the West do not understand. This is why if you have questions about what these slogans really mean, ask people from the region. Don't ask the pro-Hamas supporters. They will tell you, no, it's about freedom fighting, it's about creating a state. Of course, by the way, when the pro-Hamas supporters say, our struggle is about creating a state, they are not completing the sentence. We want to create a state and annihilate Israel, of course, annihilate Israel through the Jews off the sea, but we want to create a state. Why don't you support us in creating a state? They are masters of doublespeak. Doublespeak that many people in the West do not understand.
Like many times, Arafat would say something to his people in Arabic, and then the English translation, or what he said in English, would be totally different. I'll just add one or two more things about leaving Gaza. Hamas decided to use rockets. Where would they get the body of the rocket? Europe, the EU, had donated $300 million over the years to Gaza for a water irrigation system, not just for crops, but also for fresh water for homes. Hamas dug up those $300 million worth, retooled them, and they became, in cut lengths, the rockets that they were using to send. So if there's no more water in Gaza or sections of it, that's part of the problem. The other thing in the word Palestinian, it was given to that area by the Romans because they were thinking of the Philistines, the worst enemy of the Jews that the Romans thought of in 70 AD when they put down the Jewish uprising. And in fact, in Arabic, there is no letter P as we have it in English. So in Arabic, Palestine would be Philistine. We've come a long way so far. Does anyone have any questions? As you're all teachers, you know that a question will have a subject, a predicate, a direct object, and maybe a question mark at the end. So raise your hand, ask me, and I'll repeat it. I see one hand over here. Yes?
So, practical question, because you mentioned for the teachers to pay attention to the religious.
Oh, okay.
What does the teacher can do when he sees she in the class a student with a Free Palestine slogan, River to the Sea, any slogan that is hateful? What is practically the teacher has to do?
So because in the US you have more freedom, thank God we are dictators. I'm just saying. So in the US you have more freedom to say whatever you want to say. For example, like in the UAE, when someone intimidated Jewish students in the NYU Abu Dhabi, in the graduation ceremony, he walked into the Jewish students and he said, "Free Palestine." He was interrogated for and it was after 2 to 3 months of interrogation, that student was deported. I know it might sound tough, but because his intention was to intimidate the Jews. So this is absolutely intolerable in the UAE. If you notice a student doing this, my humble opinion is that do not confront, but maybe educate people about what these slogans mean in general to all students. Because you have to educate them, since it's an open space, you have to educate them what these slogans really mean and that they are violent. And use the help of your Arab allies who would explain to students or who would tell the people the truth about these slogans, because they are very harmful. And it's not okay, in my opinion, to misuse liberal freedom or freedom of speech to speak hate. I always say, I'm really sorry to say this. Yes, I believe in freedom of speech, but I don't believe in hate speech. And there's a big difference between freedom of speech and inciting others to harm different groups for their religion, race, color, or even sexual orientation. If you're spouting this kind of hate, I don't think that's free speech. That's my opinion, coming from dictatorship.
As a teacher, you're often surprised, taken aback by one of your favorite students, perhaps, coming with one of these slogans. What I will say again is, what do you mean? While you're thinking about how to process this in the moment, you've got other students around, you know this kid, maybe he's got some other problems, you want to speak to him privately, but what do you mean, or what are you saying, is a great comeback right then that flips it and gives you the opportunity to think what your options are, what you have available to you, what the principal would say, what your political situation is in the school. It gives you opportunity to respond in the moment and then think about what else you can say.
But I want to say also, why are these kind of political, whatever they are, political slogans are allowed in school in the first place? Why are they allowed in school in the first place? This is not... So this is not the right place, but if there is a free space, then you have to counter this, because it's very important to counter this, because many people take this slogan and I promise you, they don't know which river and which sea. I swear to you, they don't know.
Before I forget, one of you teachers came up to me earlier with a problem of what was going on in his or her school. And I said, I hear what you're saying, I don't have time now, but I have access to other people who can do things. My name is Steve Gurisoff. I think you have my contact information. If any of you want to contact me, I keep it anonymous and send it out to friends who I know who can do something or will try to do something in your school district. Next question? Yes. Bingo.
Hi, my name is Shereen Michelin. Thank you so much. This is really great. So my question is, I got into a debate with a colleague, and it's an educational colleague, but I don't work with them in my school. It's part of our union. And I got into discussion with them because of the poster they had in their office, which was stop bombing Gaza.
Stop what?
Stop bombing Gaza.
Okay.
With a woman with a European nose, with a head covering, of course, but she looks very European, but whatever. I asked them to take down this poster because I felt that it was offensive to Jewish people who are in the Union Hall. And they responded to me, and one of my reasons why I asked this person to do this is I said, look at Governor Shapiro, look at the violence against Jews, look at what happened in Washington, D.C. And this individual said to me, Israel and Jews will be safer when Israel stops bombing Gaza. And I didn't know what to say to that.
I'll tell you what to say. You have to show empathy by saying the war is ugly, the war is horrible, and I agree with you. Let's all put the pressure to stop bombing Gaza by asking the one who started the war to hand over the hostages so this war can end yesterday. So when anyone wants to put you in a pressure by telling you, let's stop the war, I say, absolutely, let's stop the war. But who started this war, reminder? Hamas started this war and took hostages into Israel, and they are still holding on to these hostages, and the Israelis are the current government is going mad because of their hostages. So the war ends when the hostages are released, and of course Hamas has to surrender. But I always say this to people. It's not about Hamas. Hamas surrender will eventually come. But first and foremost, the hostages have to be released. So if you are so angry, I would say, not you, of course, the one you debated. If you are so angry, I join your anger, and I join your grief, and I join your desire to end the war. Let's put our hands in hand to put together an end to this war by calling Hamas to release the hostages so this war can end today.
Also, in my view, there was an implicit threat in that. You will be safer if you stop. In other words, that you are not safe until. Yeah. The other aspect of this is that the enemy, the Hamas, tends to declare victory when they have been defeated simply by virtue of the fact that they have been survived as a political entity, and they have threatened in multiple news feeds to do this again and again. Sinwara said, we will have 10,000 of these floods. This will not stop. And so the end of this is the end of the Hamas ideology, the radical, and I try not to use that word. Radical is a value judgment. For most believing Muslims, for them, what they do, killing people, is conservative. It's obeying their original foundation text in the plain text interpretation we talked about. Another question?
Yes. Well, it's not a question. It's just a follow-up on. Hi. And going on with what Loay said. Am I saying your name correctly? Okay. 2005. We all know Israel pulled out of Gaza. Gaza is still part of Israel. So I'm going to refer to Israel as Israel proper. I was in Israel in 2008 in Sderot. How many of you have heard of Sderot? I might be saying it wrong. Okay. So, pardon?
You're good.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It's for the camera.
Oh. Hi. And 3 missiles came over, or 3 rockets, I don't know what to call them, came over from Gaza, past Sderot. It was frightening. I'm sorry, if I see someone pull out a knife, I'm scared. These were rockets. Israel did nothing. Israel shows great restraint. And if you look on Sderot's website, you will see they have been bombarded throughout the years from Gaza, and Israel shows restraint. There are young kids there who are traumatized and have lost limbs. So those are things that I share with people who say those comments. And a lot of them don't even know what's going on in the African nations either, which is really shocking, but only Israel.
I want to add one thing very important, please.
Thanks.
I was in South Africa 2 weeks ago, and I was interviewed by the national TV of South Africa. Is really tough. All the interviewers there are so tough. You know, in one of the interviews, one of the broadcast, one of the news anchors, he received a call by someone from South Africa. He said, "You know why this guy is standing with Israel? Because he is white. And you are black," he said to the anchor. I was saying, this is like a Hollywood movie. Wow, this is South Africa, hello. No, but I was asked a question about the same question about, don't you think that this war has to end, and this war and this war and this war? I said, first you start with showing empathy, because of course, every human being mourned the deaths of the innocents, not the Hamas operatives, the innocents in Gaza. Or else we don't have hearts. But we have to, so first you show empathy, and then you come back to the question of how to end this war properly. And I was asked on the national TV, but don't you think Israel is committing a genocide? I said, clearly, the definition of genocide is the deliberate act of wiping out the nation.
Intent.
Israel can do it, but it doesn't. Hamas wants to do it, but it can't. That's the difference. So you have to have these punchlines back of your head before you talk with someone who tells you about the war, showing empathy first, and then double down second.
The key word in English there is intent, and Israel has no intent. I just mentioned something about, quote, starvation in Gaza. There is, but there are only very few people who are starving. One of them is Aviatar David, who is one of the hostages. They showed a picture of him. If any of you get asked about what about the starvation in Gaza, tell them to take their most powerful weapon. I have got it right here. It's the index finger. Go to your cell phone and look up Warsaw Ghetto Children Starvation. That will show you pictures. Or Armenian Genocide, Children's Starvation. The kids we see on TV are jumping up and down. They're waving pots, whatever. Kids who are starving, inanition, have no calories. They are listless. They just lie in the street. The other thing, from the pictures they've sent out, they've been of very thin children. They have Fanconi syndrome, cerebral palsy, cystic fibrosis, esophageal atresia, malabsorption, celiac disease. They've gone around, Hamas, to find kids who are very thin. And fortunately, a lot of people believe that. As a physician, I look at these and I say, oh, that's not that's what it is. And in fact, when they showed a picture of Aviatar David the last time, they showed him skin and bones, and you could see a nice big fat hand handing him a cup of water. More questions? How are we on time?
We're good. We're good on time.
I apologize, I have a meandering kind of question, so I'm going to start with one little thing and then end up with students and teaching. So my son was just on his third trip to Israel with Excel Birthright, doing an internship. It was fabulous, really wonderful experience. But I do want to say that when the war started, my own son, who's in college in one of these radical colleges, he also said to me, what about these tunnels? Israel's making this up. You know, there are no tunnels. And he also questioned what Israel was doing. He had this observation I just want to share with you after these 3 trips to Israel, that wow, my education about Israel was really lacking, even as a Jew, even as a good mother who put him through a lot of learning experiences. He was missing that education. So now when he came back from his last trip, doing an internship for 2 months, and during the war he was evacuated and went back, and it was quite the experience, harrowing. His friends from New Hampshire, California, these places are all questioning the existence of Israel. Sons of senators, sons of, daughters of Congress people, and they're questioning. At the tables at Newton North, BDS is abounds, especially with Jewish students. So I think one is Jewish education itself was lacking, but where are these kids getting these denial of the existence of Israel from? What does SJP have to be, what does SJP have to do with it? This entire propaganda about white supremacy, colonization, and this whole emphasis on how do we stop it when it's, my own child, was part of it. Thank you.
I think that was for you, Loay. Here you go.
All of this brainwashing is happening on TikTok and social media. You cannot stop it, you can counter. So it is very important that your son visited Israel, Because when I first visited Israel in 2024, November, you know what I noticed? I was welcomed with a missile from the Houthis. As soon as I landed, I was welcomed with a missile from the Houthis. You know what I noticed when I went to the safe rooms? That Israel built shelters because they care about their citizens, about their visitors, and about the people. Hamas didn't build a single tunnel for their people. And you know, when one of their leaders, Musa Abu Marzouk, was interviewed, he was asked, why didn't you build tunnels for the people of Gaza? You know what he said? He said the tunnels are for our fighters. But the people of Gaza are refugees, and they are the responsibility of the occupation in the United Nations. Imagine a leader would say this about his people. They don't care about their people. And the fact that they don't care and they want their people to suffer and use this suffering as a weapon, it worked for some people in the US. Because people in the US are people with good hearts, and in the West. And they get this, oh, what is happening? Oh, you see, this is, but they don't want to say, it's not that they don't want to say, they forget that on October 7, Hamas invaded Israel because of a catastrophic, huge intelligence failure on the Israeli side. And they made all of these killings, and then what would you expect Israel to do? Anyone who would say, what did you want Israel to act? Or how did you want Israel to react? That is the question that many people cannot answer, because they know that Hamas blends themselves into buildings, into hospitals, into schools, into mosques, and they leave Israel no option other than to take them out the way that they do, which is horrible, which is sad, because there are many Palestinians innocent who are paying their lives for that. But it's unfortunately, this is what Hamas is. And they are suicidal. They don't really care how many Palestinians die. They don't really care. They just want to use their numbers as a weapon against the civilized in the West to put pressure on Israel.
1 second. And they do that through our legacy media, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. When Al-Ahi Hospital was bombed, so to speak, they had immediately 500 dead, whatever, the hospital itself. Well, there's an expression. A lie goes halfway around the world before the truth gets a chance to get its pants on. That was supposedly Winston Churchill, but it may have been Mark Twain. Each and every rocket that is sent is unguided. That in itself is a war crime. The Israelis do targeted attacks where the bomb is guided precisely where they want to. Clearly in a war there are errors, there are mistakes. But the intent is to achieve a military solution to a problem, not to wipe out everyone. The tunnels, that's a result of TikTok. I'm sure he's had opportunity of seeing multiple videos, certainly from the Israeli side, with hundreds of how he assumes that, I don't know. Next question.
Thank you. So in the response to what would or what do you think Israel should have done? I hear a lot of like two-state solution, and I know recently the UN had a vote where the vast majority of nations voted on recognizing a Palestinian state and advancing that two-state solution. And I was in the 90s, early 2000s, very, very liberal and very much pro two-state solution. I thought that was sort of the best way forward. But then in between 2005, 2008, when I saw that there was sort of this de facto two-state solution, that maybe that wasn't going to work. What about that two-state solution where people say, like, this is what we need to do, we need to recognize a Palestinian state? Like, how do you respond to that? And I always thinking, like, wasn't that kind of tried and it didn't quite work?
Yes.
I don't know.
Thank you so much, Dylan. So when I'm asked this question, I say two-state solution is not a priority right now. The priority is finding a Palestinian leadership that is willing to do the following: accept Israel as a Jewish state, living side by side with Israel, teaching their kids not to hate Jews. When this leadership emerges, I believe that you will find many people who would support the two-state solution. Right now you have Hamas or the Alibaba and the 40 Thieves in the West Bank, which is the Palestinian Authority. They are incompatible, they are incapable, they are corrupt, and they cannot lead the way. There has to be a new Palestine. So there has to be a new, even the so-called September 22nd declaration. By the way, many countries already support the two-state solution, even before this declaration that's going to happen on September 22nd. I think it's just symbolic. People do it, many countries are doing it for their domestic problems, and I understand that. But it's not going to change anything on the ground. On the contrary, with a government like the government that you have right now in Israel, you might have repercussions of unilateral recognition of the West Bank as Judea and Samaria. So it might lead things to even worse situations. When people ask me about the two-state solution, I reaffirm by saying I believe in the right of the Palestinians to live in dignity side by side with their Israeli neighbors. Two-state solution is not a priority right now. It's not a priority. The priority is finding a Palestinian leadership that is willing to live in peace with Israel. Because you had Israeli leadership that is willing to, and I had the honor of meeting some Israeli prime ministers like Yair Lapid, who believed in the two-state solution. Not anymore. After October 7th, the consensus in Israel is no two-state solutions. Unfortunately, because they said there was a de facto state, look what happened. And the one in the West Bank, or Yehuda v'Shomron, is incapable of controlling even the terrorists there. Those who those who opened fire a week ago to an Israeli bus, they came from the West Bank. So where is the PA? So it's not a priority. But I keep affirming, saying that the Palestinians deserve to live in dignity side by side with their Israelis, because I don't want the answers to show that you have no empathy towards the Palestinians at all. No, of course, but not this time to have a state. And it's not going to happen. So what's going to happen after the vote? Nothing.
What Loay just said about living in dignity alongside, that's complicated. Two-state solution just falls off your tongue. It's alliterative. It sounds like a solution. In that expression, you can solve the problem. But there was this TV personality, Senyoensis, who used to say in a little puppet, easy for you, difficult for me. If there's a problem with that two-state solution, it's only the Israelis will pay for it with blood and treasure and their lives. So they understand that this is no longer a solution for them. How we get to the dignity of the Palestinians, I agree totally with Loay, find somebody who actually can lead them to a peaceful coexistence. As far as the existence of the State of Israel, why is that questioned when 22 Arab countries are not questioned? Their legitimacy, their laws derive from the Quran. In fact, the UN issued a human the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, and they listed, it was like the American Bill of Rights. Not to be outdone, there is the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights in 1960, and that lists all those same rights, except after every one of the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, assembly, life, liberty, all of those have an appendage, except if it conflicts with the principles of Sharia law, which actually destroys that. The biggest difference there is Israel focuses on human rights and dignity for humans. Most of the emphasis of Islam is human responsibilities or obligations to Allah in a more classic sense.
But I want to say that what Hamas gets is the radical interpretations of Islam, not the interpretations of so many moderate Muslims who reject Hamas. And by the way, Hamas is absolutely banned in Saudi, in the UAE, and the Muslim Brotherhood, which harbors Hamas, is also banned in so many moderate Islamic countries because they've seen what they are bringing to their people. Imagine one day we are ruled by people like this guy who said, I don't care about the Palestinians, it's the responsibility of the UN. Imagine. You wouldn't have beautiful countries or beautiful cities in our region.
We have a couple more questions.
Not a question. It's not a question, but you said a lot of things that were really good. But I was like, the camera picked up my camera. You were done. So I'm just wondering for the people who are filming this, if there is a way to just send us like, you know, we all live in a social media world, and
Yeah, I'll take when I'll take the video, I'll make lots of shorts.
yeah, that's what I'm asking for, because that would be really helpful. Or just get up and you just say
Yeah.
this right now,
No.
and I'll put it on my feed. But
We will do
that's
it.
just a little comment. Those shorts would be.
We have another
We'll make sure
question
you get
here.
to all the video. Quick question.
And we have a question here from the lady.
Oh, yeah, let me get teacher first.
After you, and then you.
Hello. I teach mostly, I work with K-4 students, and I would say I only faced really one uncomfortable situation in my teaching role since October 7th. We were using a website where you answer questions, and they, this website donates free grains of rice to people who are hungry in the world. And all of a sudden, as the kids were engaged in it, I had a student of mine from Morocco, very, very smart, a wonderful student. He just kind of blurted out, Israel is a horrible country, and they are starving all the people in Gaza. So we should be giving these grains of rice to those people. So I didn't know what to do with that.
I'll tell you. Playbook. Those who say Israel is a terrible country, I always love to remind them what Israel gave the world. And this student should be reminded what Israel gave the world. The most used navigational app in Saudi Arabia comes from Israel. It's called Waze. Israel gave the world cherry tomatoes, USB, ICQ, agricultural technology that benefited the world. Israel gave the world Filicam. Israel gave the world lots of innovation because it believes in the advancement of human life. And also Israel, very important to say that it contributes to scientific research and AI and high tech more than any other country in the Middle East. So I would rebuttal by showing him what Israel gave to humanity. It's very important for this to be highlighted. Many people who use Waze in Saudi Arabia and curse Israel, they forgot that without Israel they wouldn't be using Waze.
And now in the back I saw a question from one of our students. Is he still here?
Where'd he go? He just stepped out.
You can look at the sign about the Weizmann Institute that was founded in 1934 with the notion to bring science and technology to make the world a better place for everybody.
And unfortunately it was hit in the last 12-day war.
Yeah,
It was
bombed, yeah.
It was bombed.
Any other questions?
I'm just wondering if there are many people in your community who share your views on Jews in Israel, or are you an anomaly? And
A growing number of peaceful voices.
I'm also wondering how the shift in your own belief system impacted your interpersonal relationships with friends and family.
With family is fine. With my mother, my dad passed away. With my mom and with my direct family members, it's fine because when they saw that when I came back from France that I had to go through a very long process of questioning and answering, so they know that it's genuine, so they are so good with me. Very supportive of what I do, but they are very worried about my safety, which is something I understand. My friends, yeah, you lost friends, but you gained so many friends as well. And I always tell to those who want to leave, you are more than welcome to come back. I don't take it personal. And I know why you're so angry, why you're so charged. When I was young, I used to think the same way about Israel, about the Jews, and about so many things, but you are more than welcome to have a debate or to have a talk. So, yes, you lose friends, but you gain more friends. Family members, most of my family members are fine with what I say. They don't agree with it, but they know that it comes from conviction and perseverance, so they understand. So those friends I lost, I have zero regrets losing someone because of my beliefs. And what are my beliefs? To annihilate the Palestinians? To annihilate the nation of the Palestinians? No, I want to have a Middle East where Israel is fully integrated with its neighbors, where Jews, Muslims, Christians, and people of different faith live and coexist together, to have a Middle East that surpasses Europe in its good being. This is what I want. It's a good cause. But those who oppose this, who don't really want Israel to exist, and with all due respect, I have to tell them, I have to remind them that we are 1.8 billion Muslims, named after, most of us are named after Jewish prophets, kings, and heroes. If Israel is gone, the legitimacy of your faith is totally gone.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.